there was a, I mean, like you name it, it was there. And I don't need art books because I have so many art books. But oh no, are we still on? Okay, yeah. Okay, good. Hey Lonnie, can you hear me? Thumbs up. So anyway, I got all these great art books. This happens to be one of them. So this is a French painter. His name's Pierre Bonnard. He went to school with Van Gogh, and he lived the life that Van Gogh could have had he lived to be very old. So Bonnard was basically a post-impressionist, trained in a classical French academy, traditional French academy, and then found his wife, married her, stayed married to her for his whole career, and she was a little weird, he was a little weird, and they basically just were recluses. If you're a recluse, that means you section yourself off from society. So like they had very limited engagement with other people. They never had any kids. And she was actually a little bit of a hypochondriac, means that she thought she was sick all the time. And she actually he basically painted her for his entire life, except when he would go out and paint landscapes. So let me show you a couple of these pieces. So let me show you this one back here. So what his process was, and he could sit in front of somebody and draw their portrait very traditionally. He was trained in the French Academy, but the way he liked to make art, which is what we're going to play with today, is that he would make sketches, quick sketches like this. This is like, I think we determined that this was like a like a hedge and some shrubs, and there's a house, and there's some like distant houses, low hills going into the mountains back there. He would make these little sketches, and then he'd go back to his studio, and just from these like very basic drawings, he would color them from his imagination. And he would, he'd remember if something was green or something was blue, but he would basically paint completely out of his head. And it's like a really awesome way of learning color, because sometimes when you like look at something and you're trying to match I'm looking at my candle right now, there's like this yellow candle, and I'm imagining trying to match that exact color, and it can almost be debilitating in the sense that especially if you're like a perfectionist or whatever, you're like trying to get exactly the right thing. Sometimes with color, it's like you have to be close. Close counts with hand grenades and horseshoes, meaning like if you're close with a hand grenade, you're going to get your target. Like with color, it's kind of the same way. Like yellow, red, blue, green, like there's not that many colors. I mean, you could argue there's only 6 colors. So as long as you're kind of close, it works. And when you have a drawing and you can remember what the colors are, you can like make the colors really strong, really weak. You can make them really bright. You can make them really dark. But you have total control, and you're not kind of burdened by what you're seeing. So just to like show you what we did in this earlier class, and there's a I don't know if this one might be, that one might be like a little much for right now. There's a bunch of really cool ones. This is the one that we did. So I did this house, and then we drew it, and that was what I kind of came up with. Like I just decided on, a dark green for the outline of the hedge, and I did light green for on top. And then I did light green first, then dark green, and then I did like a dark silhouette for the outside of the tree. I don't know. Like you kind of have to make it up, which is really cool. When in this scenario, we're not sitting out in the landscape, so we're not looking at the same thing. So if we're over Zoom, I was just choosing kind of like one topic, and so the way we did it is we sketched it from the front, from like the thing that was closest to us. We marched, back in space, from the hedge to this hedge, to that bush, to the tree, to the house, to the tree, to the other house, to the distant houses, to the low hills, to the distant mountain and then the sky. So we drew it from front all the way to the back, and then we shaded it from the sky all the way to the front. And it was basically a coloring exercise. And we're gonna, if we invest a little bit of time getting the drawing down, then we can spend the rest of the time coloring. And it's so pleasant and it's so nice. And the one thing I have learned about this artist, and I have to admit that I've overlooked him as a, just as somebody who's like close to my heart. And I think that may have been a mistake. His art is really good. And even though these drawings seem like kind of on the simpler side, it's really rich for, color experimentation. So I want you to kind of take risks with color, and we're going to sketch out a page as if it were a coloring book. And then we'll go and color the parts. And I think I'm going to choose a landscape. Let's see, where's my, oh, here's my phone. I was talking to Stacy before you guys got on. I found that it was easier to go use the photo from the phone first, because I just had to do with zooming in and stuff. So let's do this. What is it? 4:26. All right. So I only talked for 10 minutes. That wasn't so bad. Does anybody have any questions? His name is Pierre Bonnard. And like I said, like he was good friends with Van Gogh. Like he traded paintings with Van Gogh, but he lived to be, I think, in his 80s. And then on a creepier note, he did a painting of his wife while she was sick. She died. He worked on this painting for 2 years, and then she died. He worked on the painting for like 2.5 more years after she was gone, which is like morbid, but like beautiful at the same time. It's like, I just wish every painter could live out all of their years. Goya did, Velasquez did, but not most, but a lot of painters, they only lived to like 40. God, I'm 41. It's a little scary. Okay, photos. God, there's so many good ones. And then on top of it, have you guys seen the clouds today? These are the clouds, like near Mitchell School. It's like I'm living in a dream. The clouds are so gorgeous. So after this, you should get outside and see the sunset. We got plenty of time. This was another adults that did the thing. Okay. I think we should do this one. Do you guys want one of a cityscape or a landscape? Let's do the landscape. I think you'll enjoy this one. I know I will. There's a Parisian scene that's got a lot of people in it, but we'll see how this goes. We'll see how long this takes. And please tell me if I'm going too fast or too slow. I had my Gilman guys, and we were doing seashell drawings, and I was like so into the seashells, and I was ready to start another, and one of the guys was like, Mr. Twist, we're not gonna draw another seashell, are we? And I was like, no, we're not. I wasn't planning on doing it. Meanwhile, I had like 5 more seashells planned. So anyway, oh, this is his wife when she was like young. That's cool. I didn't mean to turn to that page, but so I'm going to mute my every time I need to sharpen the pencil, I'm gonna mute it for your sake. Okay. Because it's so loud. And a lot of these pencils do need to be sharpened. All right, so let's talk about this bad boy. I think some of the adults were a little jealous that we weren't doing this one, but so be it. Here we go. I'm just going to talk about it really quickly. We have this like, we're like I said, we're going to choose one color, maybe green, but whatever you do, don't start sketching with graphite. If you have, I mean, if you're going to color it, if you're only going to use graphite, please use graphite. But if you're going to use color pencil, don't mix the color pencil and the graphite together. It can be done and made look good, but there's no sense, there's no point in doing it because it's you kind of can't lose with color pencils. Let me just check and see everybody. No one's in. Okay, yeah, everybody's here. No one's in the stuck in the waiting room. All right, sweet. Okay, so honestly, the picture is not that complex, which is what's really fun about the picture. I'm going to point out the elements that we need to use. Bonnard was going small. Like this picture is 4 inches by 6 inches. I think we should kind of go small. Color pencils can be layered. You can do 3 layers. You can do maybe 4. I mean, you could probably push it even harder than that. But you want to think about what we're about to do as like separate jobs. And there's about 5 to 6, I would say, separate jobs that need coloring and you need inventing. So it's like, it's very doable. It's very doable. It's just, you want to compartmentalize these elements. So in the rectangle, obviously the rectangle is sideways. So make sure you set your paper up so it's wider than it is tall. And then we're going to do the bank of this either path or this like pond. There's a pond, there's a dude, and there's 2 people on a boat. There's this dirt, grassy dirt, and then there's all this exciting. I sound like an art nerd. There's all this like, I think it's exciting. There's all kinds of aggressive marks like on the grass that runs all the way across the piece. Now it doesn't go flat across the piece. You come up on the side and it makes basically a triangle. So you come up a little bit on the left and then it creates this like rugged triangle down to this corner. And it's a really nice way to open up into a picture, to like walk in. You've got some ground plane here. You can imagine yourself standing here. And then you get this like wall or ridge or kind of barrier of this grass. And that grass is dark notes at the base, light notes in the middle, and then even lighter notes, scribbled behind. So when I say like exciting, I mean that there's like opportunity for abstraction and for inventiveness. So there's like how you make this grass. You can make it totally your own. You can use any combinations of colors. You could do light greens, dark greens, and a brown. You can make it like a blue-green grass. There's just so much potential. Okay, so we've got the ground, which is like, I would imagine that it's dirt that has this wall of grass growing out of it. Then behind that, there's this little peninsula, which in my opinion, it's probably a similar style grass as here, but it's just further away. So you may want to use a similar color combination, or you can use a different color combination. But there's this little peninsula or this little island that's sticking off the side. And then, so it's like land, grass, and then smaller grass in the distance that may have some land in between. Then you got this water, which is the pond. The irony of the water is that, yes, you can put some waves in here, which he does to kind of balance out the island that's on this side. But the edge of the banks of the water, like the edge of the pond is defined by the rocks themselves. So where you have the edge, you could draw the edge with blue. But really what we're going to do is we're going to build these rocks layered from front to back to back. And they basically just like stack all along to get this back ridge. And then we have sharper rocks on the right. And we're going to have to define for ourselves what are rock clusters, what are tree clusters. Is this a rock cluster or is this a tree cluster? Is that a rock? I don't really know. And then the fun thing is that you don't have to know. Like these are the decisions that you can make. It's a very loose sketch, super loose. And so therefore you have more control than even he does. And these notes are communications to himself. So you could almost do that. I mean, imagine like you made this drawing you know, 150 years ago, sending it in a letter to yourself now, and they're like, okay, here you go, this is yours. Now you have to color it. You have to wait all that time to color it. It's a fascinating notion. All right. I wouldn't say that I'm cheating, but I'd say that I'm like elevating my game. So I've been doing color pencils. I had this really sweet, you know, color pencil set, and I've never even had color pencil paper ever. And I decided to get a pad, and boy, is it fun. All right, so I described it here. This is the actual book that I photographed. So let me just break it down really quickly. Land, grass, peninsula, waves. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we're going to do the left side of the banks, the right side of the banks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, left side, right side. Then the pond itself, which is 7. Then the sky, which is 8. I mean, it's not that many things. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The water is 7, and the sky is 8. So we have those components, and you want to think about each one as like a separate painting within a painting. And that's the other kind of wild thing. Is like everybody, when they're making colors, and you know, even in paintings, and this is what adults do. Not even adults, but like people that go to art school. Like they have a difficult time clearly defining the component parts and then focusing on those component parts. So I'm gonna switch over. We're gonna sketch these placements, and then before I actually add real color, after I'm gonna get all the drawing in the component parts, 8 parts. Then I'm gonna start from the sky. I'm gonna draw it from front to back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then I'm gonna color it from back to front. So I'm gonna do the sky, do the cliffs on the right, cliffs on the left, the pond from still flat water to slightly wavy to actually rough. I wonder what that is. I wonder if those are rocks protruding, or whether it's like the wind is heavier there. Like, who knows? I'm probably going to do both of these, the grass that's in the distance and the grass that's on the edge. I'm probably going to do those almost in the same breath so that the colors are kind of similar. But you don't have to do that either. That's just like my strategy. Everybody knows all this stuff is just a suggestion. It is just an artistic suggestion. You maintain your artistic independence, and you know, try to have fun with this thing. So I'll drop all of the knowledge based stuff that I can think of as I create it, and then again, take it or leave it. All right, let me switch over to my phone so that I can have some real estate to sketch with. Should I zoom out even more? And ladies and gentlemen, I did, like, if you look at my hand, you know, it is a small, the drawings were small. This one's a little bit bigger, but this one is even bigger because I didn't have the reference on the screen at the same time. All right, I'm gonna choose a tan, this orange tan. So let me see if I can move this down, move that up. I have a little bit more room. Here's the bottom of my picture here. All right, I think this should be plenty. Can you see this? It's not very strong. I'll switch over to a different color. I found out the name of my flesh tone today. Look at, do you see this pencil? This pencil is called beige. Oh no, rosy beige. My skin is rosy beige. You can't even tell I'm holding anything. It's like camouflage. It's delightful. All right, I'm gonna switch over to a brown, I guess. Should I do green? The part of the temptation is to go right into graphite pencil, and it's because we're so familiar with it. But I have a indigo blue that came recommended from one of my earlier from one of this woman who's like super smart and talented. She uses color pencils a lot. Um, she likes to sketch her beginnings with indigo blue, and that is actually art historically how the Impressionists, well, at least the Pointillists, started their pictures. So if you know Seurat, like dot dot Seurat, I think we've covered him in this class. He painted the lights and the darks, like the value, with a blue, like a dark blue, and then he colored it on top. So the indigo blue is actually kind of an impressionist methodology. So I guess I'll do that. All right, so my picture's going to end probably right about here, and it's going to start about there. All right, so I'm going to come up, and I'm going to use straight lines because whenever I'm insecure about my drawing, I use straight lines. And curves are they're just much more, they're just harder to tame, and you got to be like kind of in the zone to be able to harness the energy of a curve. So now that I'm warming up here, I'm just gonna build my edge of the water. There seems to be this like XY hatch marking. It's like, looks almost like a little platform, a triangle platform on this left side. And hopefully you guys can see, I will be able to zoom in. I should have emailed you this image. I guess that's okay. You can see plenty. It's not like you need to zoom in and see any of the color because the color's not there. All right, so when you're sketching this and you're choosing one color, don't feel like you're married to that color. I could very easily switch over to this green and mock up, the placement of this wall of grass. So I kind of want to like stick with one color or two colors just so I can like get everything placed, because I want to actually get the drawing in place before I start kind of switching my mindset and focusing on colors. When your drawing is in place, it's so much easier to do color because it's like juggling two balls versus juggling three balls. And it's not only juggling two balls, yeah, you're juggling two balls, which is manageable. But like, imagine going from juggling two balls to managing like a chainsaw, like a bowling pin and a bowling ball. Like if you can like subdivide it and just focus on the drawing right now, and then trust me, we're gonna have plenty of time to come back into the color. Okay, so I'm just gonna continue on with my indigo green. I'm trying to get the height of my grass. I do acknowledge that there are some darker marks along the base. And then there's this like secondary row. Who even knows what that is? And there's another platform in our front triangle, some horizontal strokes. And acknowledge that, kind of like setting the stage for like my future marks, like the color marks, because this is a drawing and it's not intended for paint, but he's going to take this reference material and then paint it thoroughly. So we can take that same kind of mindset where we're going to like lay down where everything is, and then we can go back in and really start coloring. So I'm actually happy with just like my wall like this, knowing it's not complete, knowing that I know where the base of the stream is, I know where the grass is. I can put in some watermarks, which are, it's like a shark in there. And then I've got my little island. And the island in itself was almost seen from like, it's not an island. I know it's not an island, but it's at least a peninsula. There's some grass on the far side of the island. And there's some grass on the front side. Cool, cool. And then on the far side of the peninsula, I alluded to it like softly, but there's a kind of a big rock behind our peninsula. And the reason that rock there is so important is because that's going to give us the start of the bank. So before, when I was talking about this, I was like, you're not going to draw the edge of the water. That's bullcrap. I'm going to draw the edge of the water because I want to see the whole lake as a shape. And then knowing that there's that edge there, then I can build my first rock. And then I can build my second rock. And then I can build, then there's like, it looks like there's a little dock right there even. Never seen that before. And there's this, and then there's that rock. And then there's this one. And it's just, they're just like one object is in front of the other. And we've done this, it's more times than I can count, but you have an object on the table, then there's another object behind that, and then another behind that. The higher each object goes, the further back it seems, because we are above looking down. So, these are, you call these like, stuffed animal, or like hacky sacks. We'll call them hacky sacks, whatever. They, stack and they get smaller as they go back, and they get higher on the page, until you get to the edge of the table, which is, the horizon line. Quick side note, since we were talking about I was talking about the clouds because they're so gorgeous. Let me just draw a quick redraw. You got the hacky sacks here, stacked on the table this way, going back into space. Clouds are the same thing in reverse. So you have the clouds that are close to us, and then the lower the clouds get, the further away they get. Now, they don't necessarily get smaller. I mean, you can have a huge cloud way far away. It's not the scale of the clouds that determine the distance. It's the orientation in the rectangle, because we are below looking up at the sky. We are above looking down at the table. And that orientation is just like so vital. And in this case, we are further away, above looking down at this water. So in the spirit of those hacky sacks, we'll have a layer of rocks that run here. And I think they kind of close off right about where those boats are. And then I think there is actually a second row, and they may not even be, I think they might actually be rocks. I'm just going to switch colors just so you can see that there's another row. Looks kind of taller, I think, rock formations that are actually behind the rocks that are close to the water. And then I discussed this picture, even though we didn't draw it in my morning class. And, people were really fascinated by this triangular, I don't want to say structure, because I don't think it's a structure. I think it's a pine tree. But there is there's all these diamond shapes up here, triangular diamonds. I broke my own rule. Everybody knows there's no rules, but I used green because I think it's a pine tree. I mean, is this mark up in this corner? Is that a tree coming in from off screen? I don't know. I made it green, so guess what? It is now. Oh my. This is my latte from this morning. It's like basically all cream. I have to drink it. So we have this distant, it's kind of like a new form, actually. Use a new color. Kind of looks like it could be a tree. These two little triangles coming off of it. This is the point of the water where we're furthest away. So if I had this watercolor, this pencil that's the color of water, not watercolor. I'm gonna take this, there gets to a point where this pond is the furthest away the pond can be, and then it starts marching forward again. And then as artists, well, not, yeah, whatever. Yeah, as artists, we are going to then build from back to the front. So I don't know if you want to start from the right side and march from these jagged cliffs to the center, or whether you want to start from the center and work your way out. I'm not sure if it matters. I love there's these thick rocky cliffs. I'm kind of like, I switched over to this brown color just for my own, knowing that I'm going to fill in all of these shapes really, really intensely. So the goal is not to copy this guy's drawing. The goal is to get the drawing, because, he was a genius. I mean, there's a million of artists, not a million, but there's a lot of artists that we could have used their sketches to make it for, but I just happen to be studying this guy this week. So I'm trying to honor him, as an artist and a draftsman. And I was reading in the Van Gogh's letters, and he was like, I have so many more ideas, than I'll ever have time to paint. And that's true with everybody. You're going to have so many ideas, and you're going to have only 80 to 120 years to pull it all off. And you got to have a family, and you got to travel, and you got to study everything, and you got to, I mean, there's just, there's so many other things to do, cook, and there's so many wonderful things. So you're going to have more ideas, and that's where drawing comes into play. When you're able to draw, you can, satisfy the need to know and to understand, but not require the, month or week or, 3 days to actually see it through to a final painting. And it's just the way it goes. So say you have 100 ideas, you take the top 10, and then out of the top 10, you paint the top 3. That's okay. And then you have 100 drawings, and you have a dozen studies, and then you have 3 finished paintings, and that's a good ratio, really good ratio. So by honoring him, saying that his sketch is good enough, we have the time to use it to study. This picture, I'll show you this one really quickly. What I love about the way I did the clouds, we're working on white paper and it's colored pencils. So you kind of have to, you draw the clouds by drawing around the clouds. And if I zoom in on this piece, I think he's kind of doing that. So he's putting in these gray tones, semi-overcast sky, but the darker moments will be the cloudless part, where the lighter moments will actually be the clouds. And all of this, again, is just a jump off point. We can make you can make those clouds wherever you want them to be. And if you guys have achieved what I have in the drawing, we went from zone 1 with the beach, zone 2 with the grass, zone 3 with the island. I was calling these waves, these close waves, zone 4. That might be not right. We'll just call the lake zone 4. Left side, right side, which would be 5 and 6. And then the sky will be 7. So we started sketching from front to back. As we start coloring, which is how I would say, 9 paintings out of 10, when you're painting landscapes, you start from the sky and you march your way forward in terms of coloring. In terms of drawing, you start from the bottom and move back. The color of the sky kind of sets the tone for the lighting and the arrangement of the whole rest of the picture. And this is the part where it's kind of where it's supposed to be fun. What is it? 454. Sweet. From earlier, I found that when I mixed my powder blue, which is basically a tinted, a tinted blue with cerulean, it got a really nice sky. Not aquamarine. Not light aqua. There it is. Cerulean. Put another sheet underneath this one because I didn't want to get the book messed up. And this is where your knowledge of color pencils, whether you have a lot of it or zero, this is where you develop your skills. So we're trying to, I'm trying to get a very calm sky. There's a lot of activity in the rocks. There's even movement in the water, and then Lord knows the grass is just like, it looks like explosions. I mean, it looks like fireworks. Like imagine if you like throw like, remember those snap bombs? You get them in the 4th of July, you throw them, they're like, psh. I feel like there's like 700 of them going off all at once along the banks of this stream.
Would you recommend making the sky a different color than the lake? Would it be darker?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the cerulean blue is kind of like the quintessential sky blue. And then, you could use ultramarine blue. They call it ultramarine blue, so it feels like the ocean. Then there's like there's ultramarine and then there's aquamarine. Aquamarine is more of a blue-green. It's more of like a tropical. And then ultramarine is more of like a northern, like off the coast of London, like going to the New World ocean blue. But yeah, I would recommend distinguishing between those two blues. And honestly, it doesn't even matter. In one sense, it doesn't matter which is which. Because the skies change so much. I saw this video of where these two oceans, where it was like the Indian Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean met, and like because of their solidity, like their, it's how much salt was in the water, salination. They didn't mix. Like they didn't. You would think that like where one ocean met another, it wouldn't be like a decisive line. You'd think that there'd be like an estuary, like where like, what's the water where like fresh water meets with ocean water, and it creates this like unique environment because it's like a somewhat salty. You have to learn it in science class in like 6th grade. So all you 6th graders out there, you should, maybe even 9th grade. I don't know. What is it called? Anyway, you would think that the oceans would do that, and they don't. The oceans don't mix. And you watch in this YouTube video, or it was even maybe even a TikTok, like you watch this ocean liner traverse this path, and like the light, it's one is brown and the other is blue.
I Googled it. It's called brackish water.
Brackish, yes, thank you. I knew you knew it. Did you look it up or did you remember?
We learned it last year, and I knew I was supposed to know it, but I did not remember it.
Me too, and I actually did really well in that class. I'm like Miss McNaughton.
See, I'm homeschooled, and science is not in my curriculum, so we've been trying to do it at home, but it doesn't always work out. So,
wait, so it's not in your curriculum, or it's not in your forte?
Well, it's not my curriculum that I do. So the thing that I use is Veritas.
Uh-huh.
So you get to choose which classes you do.
Nice.
So it wasn't in the one that we did this year. We're gonna do more classes next year, but yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if you can see how how intensely changed the pigment of my sky is, where I'm adding, I have cerulean and I'm adding the powder blue, and it just like sets it off. And that's just like I mean, you could, when you mix pencils and you mix color, you'll do the same thing in oil when you get there. It's like you'll mix the most amazing combination of color and you're like, oh, and you like want to tell everybody because it's like so beautiful. And it's like, no, like people don't experience it the same way. And you're just gonna be like, okay, that's gonna be one of my private victories, my private joys. But this one I think is like pretty obvious. I mean, look at the difference between this half and the other half. And like no one has the same set of colors, because when you get oil painting, there's like example burnt sienna, which is basically a neutral orange. Basically like it's like tree trunk brown, a little bit brighter than that. You get a Rembrandt brand or a Winsor Newton or a a Plaza Art Supply brand. Every single one of those makers has a different, it looks like a different color. Like burnt sienna varies so much. So you're like, okay, mix burnt sienna and alizarin crimson. And you're like, okay, well, which one? I mean, like, which burnt sienna are you talking about? So it's like it's so nuanced and it's so subtle that it's like almost impossible to teach it. You almost have to teach the concepts behind it so that you can then have the confidence to go in and like invent your own color combinations based on what brings you pleasure and what makes your eye, what your sense of what is balanced is. And that comes with experience. All right, cool. I got my sky. I didn't even do any clouds. I got so obsessed with the color, I forgot to put the clouds in. Jackass.
I got the Prismacolor Cloud Blue, and it makes like the perfect reflective water. If you just wanted to do like a sitting pool of water like this, it gives the reflective effect.
What was the combo?
Huh?
What were the colors?
It was the Prismacolor Cloud Blue.
Cloud Blue. Well, they definitely got a fitting name. I don't even know if I have Cloud Blue. Muted turquoise. All right. I wonder if I can fit one more layer. Yeah, I pressed too hard. When you press hard on your paper, the wax gives it like it's like a wax finish on a car, meaning you can't, the paper can only accept so much wax before it's over. So I can't even grab. I mean, I could, I guess, maybe scrape off some of the pigment, and even then, it's not going to do it. So what I found is that you really kind of have two chances to mix, and then it's sort of a lost cause. I mean, if you mixed multiple layers like thinly, to put real thin layers, because it's not like it's a number. It's just how much actual wax goes onto the paper. It's just the paper has a limit. All right, so there's a painting concept that one of my teachers developed. He just coined it at my school, and he probably stole it from somebody else. There's an idea that says mix slowly so you can paint quickly. And you can't, all of these colors are so similar. They're just warm browns. And so what I decided to do, I'm going to just like grab a selection of these. Maybe I'll get one that's like super warm, like almost red. And then out of those, I'm going to shade from far away up. And each one of my rocks is going to be a slightly different color. Should I do it on the left or the right? Maybe I'll do it on the right. Cool. I like that better. Okay. So my first guy. Whoa, that's straight black. Okay. So I'm gonna do my silhouette. I'm gonna shade it in lightly. And the next one, do the silhouette, little texture. Shade that in. Next one, silhouette. Come forward. Maybe get some more texture in there. I'll do my warm, super warm one. It's almost like a red rock. And even though I can, even though it's not dominated by the red, I can still make trace amounts of the red be in the other rocks. And I can have trace amounts of the other rocks in the red rock. So that they all seem like they're made up of the same stuff, but there's different proportions, different ratios. Ooh, yeah. I'm gonna finish it off with my own personal flesh tone, rosy beige. I know it doesn't look like I'm holding anything, but I am. It just happens to be the exact same color as my finger. I might have to change my profile name, to rosy beige. Okay, this left side, so awesome. So hopefully you guys got to see how I performed that task. I just chose a bunch of colors that were similar but a little different, and then I let them, differentiate themselves by having different ratios of each color in each one, and they march forward according to the drawing. On the left side, I think I'm going to do two separate rows. So I'm going to do a row on the top, which might actually be almost the same combination that I just did. So that then there's a connection. Be it smaller, it'll be a connection to the left side, the right side, and then the rocks that are along, I'll make them bushes or possibly a rock and green foliage combination. No offense, Foley. All right, here we go. Let's try it. All right, I'm gonna do this rock back here, just like I did the first one, far away. My silhouette. My next darker one. Go up here. Differentiate third. Go this way. Bring that all the way up, and then I'll do the red. And I'll bring the red one will be underneath this tree. I'm happy. I'm kind of happy. I mean, hopefully you guys are, having fun coloring. Coloring is fun. I think I mentioned this last week, and I should have told this to my adults. You can't forget what the whole point of this thing is. Like, the whole game is to make beautiful photos, not photos, big beautiful pictures. And the only way it's really going to be beautiful is if you're having a good time doing it. Any activity that you do with a negative attitude is going to be, tinged. I don't want to say tainted, but it's going to be tinged with that spirit. Even if you're like mowing the lawn and you're like mad you have to do it, it's like the lawn will be saturated with that vibe. And if you're sensitive to it, sensitive people are sensitive to that. And it's not a bad, if you're mad or have like emotions, that negative emotions or positive emotions, it doesn't matter. You can lace your work with that, and you should. That's part of the game. So I'm not saying feel a certain way, that you have to be happy, but the mood will be impacted. The art will be impacted by the mood. That's just there's just no getting around it. So I mean, I lean towards happiness. So, and that's what I'm trying to go for here. But that doesn't mean that it's, I didn't mean to say that your work has to be happy. God. That would be boring. And that's why you don't ever have to actually worry about your mood either relative to your art. Like you don't have to try. Like life gives you your your conditions. And as long as you're used to making art, you make art under those conditions, whether you're happy, depressed, sad, in love, it's almost like you can't, there's certain factors that you don't do control, but you can control whether you produce. So produce art regardless. I'm going to take a bunch of greens. Oh, that's a bright one. The bright one's going to come forward. High intensity green's bright, neutral's back. Okay. Here we go. I hope this works. So these are, these have become trees. I don't think I had decided. I think even in my mind, I think I had chosen that they were probably rocks. But with this color scheme, it just became bushes and trees. One of the artists, his name's David Buckley Good. He's still alive. He worked at Mitchell School for years. And then when we moved to Coppermine, he stopped teaching, and and since COVID, I don't even know what he's doing since COVID. He's the one who taught me that formula for painting back to front, drawing bottom to back, front to back, bottom to top, and then painting from top to bottom, or furthest away and marching forward. It's amazing how much unity you can get by just doing the landscape dance, walking back and then walking, and then coming back, walking away and then coming and then returning. And regardless of what your colors are, it doesn't particularly matter. The process is what matters. And it is overall a very useful, and in terms of percentages of having successful pictures, the percentages go up real high when you create art that way. And again, I'm not even saying that my piece is good. I actually am my strength is not coloring from imagination. It is something that you can very much get good at. I'm very dependent on taking natural cues and working from observation. I think that's just my skills. It doesn't. I have friends who can have the most beautiful natural sense of color, and I envy it. Mine comes from observing and relating what I see to the colors that I'm working with. So if this process that we're drawing right here isn't very comfortable for you, it's okay. You're not the only one, and it's worth it because it's a good time, but it doesn't mean that there's other ways of creating art than just out of your head. Even though I'm a fan, if you're making art, however you're doing it, I'm kind of a fan. It's just like life. You only have so many years, and if you've chosen to spend any amount of that time making art on this planet, on this earth at this time, I respect it. So you don't want to lose sight of that. You're still the good guys, regardless of what it looks like. What is this? So Sebastian, did you do the water yet? Has anybody done the water? What color did you use relative to the sky?
I haven't done the water yet.
Okay.
I did a darker blue.
You did like an ultramarine. Okay. Ooh, I might do
Mine's kind of similar to the sky, but I think it's a little lighter than the sky. It's not quite, almost there, but not quite.
okay. Let me show you the difference between cerulean and cobalt. They're pretty close. They're both kind of like cliche blues. Like when you think about like, you're going to kindergarten, you're like, I've got a blue backpack. It's like both of these are very, blue backpack. The cobalt is a little bit more violet, like it leans a little bit more towards red, where this one, the cerulean, leans more towards green. So I don't have an ultramarine. Okay, I got a violet blue. So maybe I'll do cobalt in the lighter areas, and then I'll use the violet blue for the edges, where the edges of the water seem to get darkened, either because of the reflection of the objects that are close to it. Probably. I think that's what it probably has to be. I'm going to stay a little bit lighter in the middle. We should put like pink river dolphins sticking their tails out. The title of this piece is Boat on the Seine, and the Seine is a river in France. Yeah, here's my blue violet on the coast of our fishing pond.
I feel like yours has more of a standing on a bank and looking straight at it feel, or like sitting in a boat and looking straight forward. And mine definitely has more of an angle, looking down.
Yeah, and it's probably because when we drew and I should have maybe mentioned it. I think I maybe even have thought of it. When I drew the edge of the bank, it's very easy to draw up higher rather than like staying low at a low angle. And if you have more pond, then that puts you higher. So the higher you are, the bigger the pond is. To the point where you're in an airplane and you can see the entire thing. Nothing's in foreshortening. Yeah, no big whoop. You just get more. There's a beautiful. Let me look this up. There's one of my great students. I guess she's probably a senior in college now. When she was in middle school, she did a copy of a Wayne Thiebaud, and it was a highly colorful, like what you're talking about. I think Braden's being up really high and seeing a lot of the composition was the circumference of this lake. Let me see if I can find it. I'm about to find it. I'll save this one because this is not it, but it's similar in terms of the perspective. Oh, that's not it either, but this is also very similar. Cool. This one's great too. Getting closer. Getting closer. I love these like Google algorithms. Search sequences. Man, still it's not there. Take you down these rabbit holes. So gorgeous, and I can't believe it's not one of the first ones to pop up. It's a very popular painting of his. I can show you that. I'll get 10 more seconds looking on here, and if I don't find it, then I will just show you the ones that we do have. So close. This guy made an absolute fortune developing the ideas that we're working with right here. Okay, let me show them to you. And again, these are not the ones that I taught, but okay, check this out. Look at even my color sequence is actually kind of similar. All right, so we are higher, way higher looking down at this. We're getting much more real estate, much more distance. We're not even on the ground. I guess you're in an airplane. But it, the water makes almost like this smokestack. It's like this chimney smoke shape, kind of running from bottom right all the way up to top, bottom left all the way up to top right. The shapes of the fields are gorgeous. The ideas that we were talking about when like subdividing, we broke our painting down into, I think, 8 different parts, seven or 8 different parts. Look at how he uses the same set of concepts. He breaks his picture down into basically 3 major parts: left side of the bank, the water; right side of the bank. Eliminates the sky completely, and then subdivides the right side of the bank into these paintings within paintings, opportunities for beautiful color, beautiful shadows. This is like this whole big orchard down here. So, light side of the red bush, shadow side, and then cast shadow, and just all in those rows. Whereas there's this yellow field, and they're not. It's like there's an abstract concept called color field painting, and I think he's being like a little ironic. I mean, he's literally painting color fields, but who cares? I mean, engaging with the color, inventing the color, not seeing what happens. That's the adventure, and you want to hold on to that adventure of color and not be burdened by it, or like, oh, it's not that color green. It's like, shut up. Like, it is the right color green. Like, is it exactly the green that I'm observing? No, but does it work for my painting? Yes. You got to kind of got to defend yourself, because there's going to be like haters out there. This was similar. This is actually a field that's being plowed, and there's actually a plowshare. I can turn it sideways. And it's almost surreal in that it's like, not like a natural landscape. I mean, these trees, you're seeing these trees in profile, almost as if you're looking directly at the side of this tree. And then, it's on the edge of this stream. And then he just makes these echoes, almost like certain types of agate rocks, where the rocks are like, layered. And then he gives you, a little, plow. And there's a little peninsula on this side, just like we did. You don't know what the sky's doing, but let me see if they can. If I zoom it in a little bit, there is a lot of color. There's a lot of yellow, a lot of oranges. The water here is acting like a mirror, and it's reflecting the sky, which is also just another opportunity for to paint the sky without painting the sky. I mean, he's painting the water, but he's really using the colors that you would see in that sunset. And yeah, Braden, like way high up in the air, seeing a lot of this pool. I mean, our pond is probably the size of what the part I'm circling right now, at best. And we're painting the sky from the ground, maybe slightly elevated. Painting this scene from a slightly elevated position. Whereas this, he's sketching these from an airplane. There's no other explanation. There's no mountain that's this high. Certainly, yeah. But it's nice, close to far. And he just stacks these shapes close, moving back into space, getting slowly flatter and more distant. Top to bottom, the principle remains the same. Out of this group, I think this is my favorite, and because I think he's kind of combining a number of those, number of the concepts. I love following the stream from the lower left up to the right. Whenever your compositions, at least in the West, are anchored on a diagonal that goes from bottom left to top right, you want to imagine like the stock market climbing, stock market moving in a positive direction. It's going uphill. When there's that angle, we get an uplifting feeling. So if you're trying to make people's mood, make people's day better, compose your pictures on the Baroque diagonal. If it's a scene of like tension or stress or violence, they can be angled on the sinister diagonal, meaning the top left to lower right, the stock market crashing. It's it's more of a despair kind of feel. The overall thrust of this picture, meaning the main river movement, is from lower left to top right. So that's good. He's got the plowshares. He's got the orchard. He's got some pastel shapes up here. He's got some like green bog area, and then some like really distant islands in the back, which are very subtle and very quiet and very nice. I love the cast shadow from this cluster of trees in the middle. It's kind of like this little wild land, you can imagine. It's undeveloped, and everything else was probably like that, and then they cut it down for farmland. But the shadows on those trees are really delightful on the setting sun. Long shadows and cool shadows. I mean, look at these colors. Like, none of the colors are natural. He's got blues and purples and like green, high intensity yellows. He's really Wayne Thiebaud is this artist's name, and he does take a lot of liberties. And I had not conceived of my designs echoing kind of his color scheme, but it's not that different. All right, cool. That was good. Again, Wayne Thiebaud is his name. Now, also still alive, lives in California. All right, here we go. I used the this powder blue on the sky, on the cerulean, and it smoothed it out nicely. And I think I'm gonna return the favor so I can get at least a color connection to the sky. And then for whatever reason, it just blended. It blended so nicely. Oh my God, I forgot to do the boat. Julia, why didn't you tell me? I think I'll recover. We'll see. Now I have to make decisions about the grass. I think I'm going to choose 3 colors. So he chose 3 values, light, medium, and dark. I think I'm going to choose 3 colors, and each of those colors will have a light, a medium, and a dark. All right, so here's the light one. I did this salmon pink earlier, and it was just a really, really gorgeous color. I set my tripod on fire this morning. Full disclosure, there's like this little handle that I use up here to turn it. And I had my candles lit. And oh dear, the whole piece of plastic caught on fire. Fire alarm went off. Kristen still doesn't know. All right, I'm gonna do a salmon, which is gonna be my light. I need a mid-tone. What if I did maybe a mid-tone gray? I've got a cool gray. Would that be too contrasting? Maybe need a warmer gray. I have a silver. What colors will be good with this? All right, I'll use the light will be high intensity. Then my mid-tone, I'll drop down a little bit. Do this henna color. That'll be nice. So I got a high intensity tinted orange, a mid-level neutral orange, and then probably a dark brown. Chocolate. Who doesn't like chocolate? Ooh, all right, so here are my three colors. I feel like they might do the trick. I'm not gonna fight it. I'm just gonna go for it. I was envisioning greens for the grass, but I completely abandoned that. Do some light notes. Now the salmon color that I have right now, it's not covering any of the blue. So I'm gonna hopefully rely on the chocolate to be able to dominate the blue and go over the top of it. So I'm gonna use my salmon for the tops of the grass, where there's raw pigment still, where there's raw paper. And I could possibly even drop it down even further, even though most of the pigment that's at the bottom I know is going to get covered up. So the grass will, I like that. Okay, good. All right, let's try the henna. Space these out a little bit. I'm looking more at the drawing itself. And the henna itself is able to cover the blue. Thank the Lord. Because I need this island to be in front of the water. Looks like there's a little bit of a cross hatching that he's got going as far as the tall grass in the distance. I mean, it looks good so far. Let's see what this chocolate's able to do. See, is it in fact drastically darker than the henna? And it is a degree darker than the henna. I'm so lucky right now. So there's the idea where it's like, where I said mix slowly and paint quickly. I was sitting here looking like probably who knows what, trying to decide which colors to choose. And by taking that extra time, meaning, mixing the right colors till you get it to get something that works. And here it's about selecting the colors. And then the whole thing is just going to be that much better when it's time to apply. You know, I'm not sitting here like putting one color and then being, oh, it doesn't work, and then another one. And then with these two bogs, you know, the grass and the island, because they're the same entity but just different distances apart, they want to be made up of the sort of the same language of marks. Different, bigger, closer, but the color is really going to unify them. I got to figure out what to do with the dirt that's in the very bottom. Yeah, and the working in this way too, there's no part, like when you subdivide it and you compartmentalize it and you make paintings within paintings, when a piece isn't addressed, it becomes really obvious. And so you know, people always ask, you know, there's so many cliche questions that people will ask you when you're an artist, and one of them is like, how do you know when you're done? And you're like, well, when all my parts are painted perfectly. That's how I know it's done. So dividing, you know, so setting yourself up to have jobs, you know, being like kind of task oriented rather than being totally open ended and ambiguous. You know, you'll get to know your process, and you know that stopping point or starting point is completely different for everybody. And just because I choose these three colors doesn't mean I can't add more later. This is just like, you know, my first phase. I feel like it's pretty good though. More salmon. We need more salmon. I see my parents like probably like twice a month. I swear my dad eats salmon for every meal.
Our dad doesn't do it for every meal, but he's a really good cook and he loves to grill salmon. And he makes like the best grilled salmon ever.
I'm doing short ribs tonight.
Ooh, always a good choice.
I got everything prepped. We got this ninja foodie. I know. I do. I feel like I cook short ribs on Thursday a lot, but that's nice. I might ask for one more darker color. I might lean it. So this is the range: light, middle, dark, and then I'm pulling in this extra dark, and it's going cooler. So it's called dark purple. So it's still in the warm family, but it's one notch over towards the cool side. So it's got, it will have blue in it, but it's got a lot of red in it. You know, orange, red, neutral red, and then a neutral red violet. And I'm hoping that does the trick for some of these, the deepest notes at the roots of the grass. It's kind of funky. It's good though. I might even add a little bit of that in my distant one. Yeah, I haven't put the boat in yet, because I forgot. I haven't gone back in to do some trees. I think I could get some nice greens for those trees up in that corner, like that pine that's sticking, that's, you know, kind of entering into the picture. I might make that a little bit more prominent. I haven't, and when you make pictures, I kind of almost see them in passes. So it's like, you know, you draw it out and then you you address every component part. And I call that the first pass. Then you can go back once the first pass is done for every single component part, then you can come back in and kind of assess it all fresh, like all anew. Because you're looking at something that hasn't existed before. So you let yourself see it, and then you can, you know, not judge it, but assess it and think like, oh, well, this bush over here, yes, it's a gorgeous color, but it needs more texture. The waves, you know, I haven't really addressed the hierarchy of the marks of the waves in the water. So then on the second pass, you're not redoing it. You're just like, you know, ticking up, elevating it, you're turning it up a notch. But it's hard to tell what needs to get turned up and what needs to be toned down until every single component shape has got the first pass. So after the first pass, and to be able to like see this through in one single sitting, I think is really healthy. Like color pencils allow you to address color, whereas when painting, oil painting is such an ordeal. You know, with cleaning brushes and paint application and like fumes and palette paper and, you know, what do you know, like palette knife. There's just so many other components, and it's better to like get the process of like sketching, coloring, first pass, second pass, final touches, and then just be out. You know what I mean? And once you get used to that process, when you start introducing watercolors or oil paints or even doing digital art, once you have the cycle from the beginning of a composition all the way through to the end, your productivity will go higher because you're used to kind of an organized approach. And I'm getting close. I'm getting close to completing my first pass. I need to do and I'm seeing it as sand or dirt. So I think I'm going to move over into some of my yellows. Ooh, it's almost back to my original color. Probably some browns. Light umber. And color selection, I think, is hard when you don't have anything to go on. Other people, it's like total freedom. They're like, why would you ever even need to look at anything, because you can make it whatever you want. And again, I kind of wish that was me. I'm going to do a unifying sand color over these other things. Does that look good? Hard to tell. This is the black grape, which is actually one step darker even than the dark. I guess it was violet before. This is approaching black. I do have black in here somewhere. I try to, this is Bonnard was an impressionist, and it's not that you don't want to use black. It's just, it's the deepest dark that you can get. Like the pencils don't come any darker than that. So it's okay to go all the way to that extreme in terms of getting the value. You just want to be very sparing in a picture that's lighter. You know, if it's a you know, colorful picture, you want to, you know, keep your colors and your values on the lighter side. So the majority of the picture is going to be light with a couple of deep notes. Again, so the black, you can go that dark, but overall the picture wants to be lighter. So with the suggestion of my other friend, or not my friend, but one of my students, she said the indigo blue in these very colorful pictures is a very deep value. So instead of like defaulting to black, the indigo blue can pull out the lines that you might be looking for in terms of the value, but without having to go so neutral with the color. My greens are an issue. I feel like the trees needed a texture. To fall into their category. That helps. I might go, I might use that super dark note for a boat and the the people in the boat. So this isn't the darkest that it can go. That's pretty close. I guess in theory there should be some shadows on the, you know, some reflections in the water. This is usually the part where I would like add like the Loch Ness monster. But I've been trying to take my painting a little bit more seriously, and even like the in-class studies. It's fun to be playful and joke. You know, putting the head of the Loch Ness monster would, I think, might invalidate all the other good decisions that I made so far. And I used to do that, even though I made beautiful paintings. I think it was, you do it a little bit even out of insecurity. You know, you're like, oh, this is not a big deal. Whatever, I could do this again. And you like rip it up or throw it out or do something, or like add a Loch Ness monster, and it's like, no, this is actually very important, probably more important than any of us really know. Yes. Trying to maybe put some of these cooler gray tones to kind of push those rocks a little bit further back. There's just like these like squiggles that were coming up over the water, and I hope the decision to make this red note here, I think it's okay. Especially there. And make it a couple more up here. Hmm. Mhm. Anyway, we got to make art today. That's for sure. I think it would be so weird to be like Bonnard and to like see somebody else like color your picture. I can show you some of his other landscapes if you don't mind. I mean, we did spend a lot of time with this guy's thoughts. All right, as I look this up, you guys can see that. Ooh, I wonder if he even turned this into a. I just hit Bonnard landscape painting lake. Actually, I'll just like do the title. Let me just try the title because he could have very easily turned this into a painting, and I just don't know it. Because the whole book that I have is just his drawings, and the other one, the one that I looked up earlier, I knew that it was the sketch for the last painting that he made, which was an almond tree in bloom, and his final sketch looked nothing like. So I studied the final sketch, and I didn't look at the final painting because I didn't want it to influence like my thinking, and then it turned out to be like something completely different. Okay, let me just look up this actual title. Boat on the Seine. Hmm, cool. So there is one, but it's not this one. But it might be interesting to see how he did it. Oh, wow, okay, cool. That's interesting. We're getting a lot of products. I don't want to look at the products. I want to look at the paintings. Boat on the Seine painting. Okay, so there's this painting. This is by him. It's got, I'm just trying to look for similarities. It's got the triangular base that comes up, here. It's got the water. It's got the horizon line. It's got the layering on this side, and he's got these massive trees on that side. Let's see what else he's got. This actually is a very typical Bonnard painting. That was my YouTube video on how to cook short ribs. All right, let's just see what comes up. This is, so he was very much a colorist, and so it's just it's amazing how far back this goes into space. It's got these large, beautifully colored trees, colors all over the place. If you were to think about this picture in its zones, half the picture are these trees that are in the foreground. All of these trees in this little valley, and then the second half of the picture is this very distant landscape and even the mountains. I guess that it would be the landscape, this like road, this ridge that comes up here, and this valley that's down here. Then the third part I would say is like the water and the mountains and then the sky. It's really kind of cool. There's another one. He's kind of famous for creating frames within frames. So you can see these houses, this house is in front of that house, 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 in front of that hill, in front of that valley, in front of this brackish water, in front of that distant like bay, and then finally that peninsula, and then that water and sky. So he's following this layers all the way down, and that becomes the main composition, but it's framed out by this gorgeous tree branch here and that tree on that side. And this, again, this like kind of triangular foreground. You see how it's like these artists, they have these certain formulas that they just kind of keep repeating. So even though it's not the same subject, you enter the picture in the landscape the exact same way, and then you have this, like, instead of, you have this little lawn here, then instead of reaching a wall of grass, you're reaching a wall of these shrubs. So you get shrubs, and then this shrub, and then you go over that, that's the water. And then, anyway, you can kind of see how these ideas kind of get repeated. That's really beautiful. So the whole foreground is in shadow, and then you come out of the shadow and you enter into this gorgeous illuminated field. He had a little dachshund that was his, and that's probably his wife, I'd imagine. And then you just move back into space, capturing all of that deep space. Look how neutral this little top portion is for how bright yellow and green that field is. Look at all of that interaction between the light greens, dark greens, neutral greens, branches. It was a beautiful, beautiful paint application. Doesn't even care. Same right-handed triangle dividing the base of the picture. Main subject in the middle, distant, and then it looks like a setting sun back there. Bonnard was a really unique painter in that he was friends with Van Gogh. He knew a lot of artists, and he came from money as it was. So he got to be kind of artistically independent in terms of professional level, like from the very beginning. Like he never had to worry about money ever. So he would just paint the way he wanted to paint. And then on top of it, he was with a good crew, and he always had collectors. So he was hugely successful of an artist, in his lifetime. And on top of that, he lived to be like close to 80, I think. So you take a solid foundation, a fantastic education at the right time, at the right place, and then a career where you didn't have to like wait tables, and he just painted the whole time in a stable relationship where his wife was his muse, his inspiration. It was a very, very, very sweet combination for massive output and genuinely beautiful paintings. I mean, I can't think of any other person that really has all of those components. Not that his life was not without tragedy. I mean, he did have some bumps in the road for sure. And if you can watch any 10-minute YouTube documentary on Bonnard, and you'll get it. But he loved color. He loved painting, and these pictures were developed over long periods of time. He would actually tack the canvases in the wall. He'd get a huge canvas, tack it in the wall, and then he'd paint like multiple paintings on the same sheet of canvas. So he had like big pictures going on He'd had like one huge canvas that was like maybe 4 feet by like 8 feet, and he'd have like 5 paintings going on in the same one. And he would roll it up, and he would travel, and he'd tack it onto the wall of the hotel, and he'd paint from wherever he was vacationing. He just never stopped. So whenever, if he painted figures, they were mostly of his wife and his dog. It looks like that's his wife and his dog right there, coincidentally. Yeah, so Impressionism never died per se, but it was not necessarily in fashion. I mean, so there was Impressionism, 1860s, 1880s, and then Post-Impressionism, 1880s to 1900. Coming off of Romanticism, and then Cubism kind of came into vogue, and then Cubism and Surrealism, and then then the wars happened, and then all bets were off, and everything went crazy. Like mankind kind of went crazy. It was just so traumatizing. But he lived in the height of Romanticism. He was born into the height of Romanticism, coming off of Neoclassicism, and experienced the whole Impressionist transformation, whole Post-Impressionist, and then went all the way through Cubism, Fauvism, all of the isms that happened in the first half of the 20th century, he lived through. And because of his lot in life, being at a higher station, was able to be really insulated from a lot of that, and was able to kind of paint for the sake of painting. And again, his pictures are preserved because he had a lot of collectors, and they are, it's all well documented, well cared for, and beautiful. I don't know. We're really lucky. I mean, France is lucky, but we are too. And we have a lot of these paintings. His one of his best paintings that I was telling you about, where he painted his wife, towards the end of her death, and then continued working on the painting after she passed. One of his last paintings, that's in Pittsburgh. It's in the Carnegie Museum in Pittsburgh. So, if you're interested in this art, living up and down the East Coast, from DC to Philadelphia to New York and to Boston, we have most of it. I mean, the French kind of blindly gave away a lot of the best paintings to American collectors. So we have some of the best Impressionists and Post-Impressionist work in the world here. Not that you shouldn't go to France, but really you can take advantage of this stuff, and we own it. America has benefited from being ahead of the curve on art trends. So okay, everybody. Can we just, before you guys head out, if you do head out, I'm going to stop the share, and then could you just hold up what you have? I'd love to see it. Julia, why don't you go first? I'm going to pin you. Dang, that's good. So you're using markers?
And colored pencils, which didn't work out as I wanted, but it's good.
Yeah, those are markers, and colored pencils I found are relatively compatible. And that's a nice piece. Very mature, actually. Let's see. Where is it? Yeah, Braden, let's see what you got.
It's not the best.
Whatever, man. That's awesome. Wow, that tree in the middle is dynamite. It's so interesting. We did another one, and my sister was in the morning class. I love that piece. I love that piece.
Definitely went for the layers.
Yeah. I mean, and it's got the depth. And when you're given so little, kind of content to work from, you can have so much more, you can take so many more liberties, and that's where it really becomes yours. I mean, that's your piece. I mean, he influenced it, but my goodness, like Mr. Messick, that is, I would practically call that an original. All right, Sebastian, can I see yours? Whoa, cool. Oh man, there's Renoir painted a bunch of pictures from Algiers, like northern Africa, because the French would vacation there. And that totally, if you look up Renoir Algeria or Algiers, it totally reminds me of those landscapes. Um, great, fantastic, thank you. Maya, can I see yours? Replace the pin. Yes. Yes, I'm glad that you stuck with the graphite. I'm glad somebody did that. So the only thing I would suggest is that if you get a ruler and or like something that's got like an angle on it, and actually make some of the darker marks the frame, because like the it kind of you can tell there's a rectangle there, but the marks inside the composition are perfect. It's just if you frame it out with straight lines on the sides, you'll be able to like it'll be like contained almost, and I mean you'll be able to see it better. I mean, but that drawing is fantastic.
Well, I was done earlier, so I decided to draw something if I can find it again.
That is lovely. Is that pen? That's ink, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, I love it's a moon, right? Is it a
It's
moon
either
or
a
a
sun
star?
or a moon. I don't know.
I know. I was gonna say, I was like, I love the moon, but it might be the sun. It's even brighter. That's beautiful. That's art. That's why we're here. Thank you. Kaya, you want to show yours? If Kaya is in existence. Estelle and Lonnie, if you want to show it, I'd love to see yours too. But no pressure. Estelle, how'd you do? No dice. No dice. Okay. All right. I gotta go make these short ribs, y'all. I hope you had a wonderful time. I did. I had a great time, and I will be seeing you guys next week. If you have
Thank you.
oh yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, Estelle, that's fine. It's not unmuting you, but that's all right. Please, if you guys can email me these pictures, it's so much better seeing them in a photo than it is on the computer. So I'd love it. Just email it to Mitchell School, themitchellschool@gmail.com, and I'll get it. All right, guys, have a great week. Good to see you. Bye.